Welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish. I'm your host, Juliette Clark, and I'm pretty excited about today's guest. It's a new year, and we have a new theme here on the podcast and at Breakthrough Author Magazine. Our theme for this year is Ditch the Middleman, Strategies to Bypass the Book Distributor Fees. So you're going to hear a lot this year about ways to promote your book with your own copies of your book. And I'm really excited about that because between the cost of paper and the distributor fees, authors are making next to nothing. So really excited to share that with you today. If you have not gotten your subscription to Breakthrough Author Magazine, please go over to www.breakthroughauthormagazine.com and get your free subscription. It's really going to be a challenging year. So I encourage you, we've got new people coming on board, health experts, business coaching experts, things that we haven't had in the past that I think will be really helpful for authors to learn to run their books as a business. So today's guest is Leisa Reid. And as the founder of Get Speaking Gigs Now, Leisa trains professionals who want to use their speaking to grow their business. Clients who work closely with her get their Talk Ready to Rock program and build their speaking skills and confidence through the Speakers Training Academy. As a speaker herself, Leisa has booked and delivered over 600 speaking engagements, and she teaches her clients all the strategies she uses to get booked, stay booked, and monetize their talks. Now, Leisa is going to share her number one secret she uses to get speaking gigs, and I'm pretty excited about that because I think that's the hardest part. Having your signature talk is something that you can put together when you know how, but it's getting your foot in the door to actually giving that talk that really matters. So stay tuned for Leisa. Leisa, welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you today.
Oh, I'm so excited, Juliette.
So I was telling everybody in the intro, you were the first podcast of the year, and this year's theme is Ditch the Middleman, Strategies to Bypass the Book Distributor Fees. So I'm really excited to have you today because being out there talking, whether it's podcast, media, whatever it is, this is the best way to sell books on your own and dump that 55% to the distributors. So the hardest part, though, is what we're going to talk about today, getting booked. So why do people find getting booked so scary?
I think it's because you're really putting yourself out there. Also, for a lot of heart-centered, purpose-driven folks, sales hasn't necessarily been the forefront of their skill set. Maybe they have skills in other areas. So when it comes to not only selling, but you're selling yourself, you're selling your message, it can flush up a bunch of triggers, a bunch of insecurities that even the most confident, intelligent person has. They're like, oh, well, I guess I'll just write something else, or I'll work on this other thing, or I'll scrub the bathroom floor, and then I'll get to those, calls.
And you can eat off my bathroom floor, thank you.
Exactly. So it happens to the best of us, and I like to make it not so intimidating and not so cumbersome. And I think it can be cumbersome. If I've been through that, where it's like cold calling, scratching, scrambling, looking under every nook and cranny and all that. And I just don't find that a inflow way to be. And I think it kind of takes us out of flow. So there's probably some other things that keep us from that too, but I think those are the main issues that come up.
But probably it's kind of scary, but a really good reason why you need to build relationships, because having that warm intro because somebody thinks you'd be good for an event is really a much better way to go. So when we're getting booked, we have to start with the speaker sheet. And I think you just said something really valuable there about giving the materials and having a third party look at them, because I think when we write our own material, at least I find this for me, I downplay a lot. Like I don't see the value that maybe a third party would see. How do you feel about that as far as, when that's being put together, having somebody else look it over and really critiquing it hard?
think it's funny that you put it in that framework. I never thought about it in that way, but it would make sense giving what your expertise is. It sounds so easy to put your speaker sheet together. I kind of come in before that because, well, I mean, some of my clients come to me and they already have it done, but it's just one, and just for context, in case people are like, what's a speaker sheet? It's like one page highlighting your speaker stuff. So it's not all your context. It's not all the stuff that you do. It's not every single thing under the moon, like on your website would say, but it's just you as a speaker. But there's some components in there, just like your bio, your title even could stop someone, your photos, your talks that you're going to do, testimonials. So it's small pieces, but when you start that project and you're like, oh, I don't have any testimonials. Oh, I need to get my photos redone. Oh, I guess I'll just use my old bio. I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. So all of a sudden, this simple task is now not so simple. So that's where I kind of come in. I'm like, and I'll even back up to the first question. This is what I wish I had answered when you first asked me that question. I typically say, you want to be ready to say yes. That's it. And if that means having your speaker sheet done, great. If that means getting those headshots done, do that. If that means getting someone to review your bio because you left out a bunch of really important things that nobody that you thought were no big deal, then we got to do that. So it's like, or getting your talk done. So there's all these things that can actually keep us from saying yes. So someone could get this warm intro and like handed on a silver platter, please come and speak. And if that person's not ready, they will literally not respond to that email. And they'll just be like, oh, I'll get to that soon. And then it starts to get cold and then they get embarrassed. Oh, well, maybe they forgot that they asked me. And then they just delete it eventually and hope that no one remembers. So that's why people have a hard time getting booked. It's scary. All that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And I know because we do a speaker one sheet and a book one sheet because we want more information. Like, look, this person has a book. So look and see where to buy it, see what it's about. And you can't really a lot of times get all that on the speaker sheet. You can put a picture of your book, but there's just not enough room.
It's two different pieces. Yeah.
So it's always interesting to me when we put those together and we really have to say, like, Leisa, what are your 3 to 5 signature talks? And I think that's where people kind of get stuck too, because they'll say, oh, I talk on this one topic, but you have to have catchy titles. You have to have a catchy description in order for the person who's hiring speakers to say, oh, I love that. And it's catchy. So how do you start with all of that?
Well, I often say, I don't recommend people start with 3 talks. I recommend they start with 1 if they're starting. And so this is where it gets different. The longer you do stuff, then of course you have more talks. Exactly. But to get started, 100% do the 1. Don't worry about the others yet. You can beef up your speaker sheet in a way that really highlight that 1 talk just to get started. Honestly, these days, I don't even know if anyone's really even looking at the speaker sheet. It's more about your confidence and being ready to go. Yeah. That energetically is so attractive. So like if you're out and, say you're out and about, you're at an event, a conference, whatever, or you're on a virtual meeting with someone who's really influential, and that you're like, I've got this talk that I am so excited about that I know is going to help other people. It's awesome. You're going to actually be the best salesperson in that moment over anything else. But the speaker sheet's important because it also just helps boost that confidence. It's like that way. I think sometimes people are like worried. Oh, I hope they don't ask me for my website. Oh, I hope they don't look at my, business card. Oh, I hope they don't ask me for a speaker sheet because I don't have it ready. So just get it ready. Like just have it ready. But you also need to work with what you have. So if you don't have 5 signature talks, that's fine. Just put 3. If you don't have 3, put 1. You can always change it later. It's okay. Work with what you have. That's what I say.
But you just brought up a really important point too about organically being at an event. And I find that even more because I don't really send out my speaker sheet anymore. I used to. But just being in touch with someone and saying, I really like the way she presents herself and it is something complimentary to my audience could be all you need. It's just
That's
with
it.
that,
Yep,
with
yep.
that confidence and that nurturing and building that relationship, you'll find you're probably asked more than to come in and speak than you would be to send out those sheets cold.
100%. And that's, I think, where people get a little mixed up of thinking, oh, this is the answer to my problem, or this is the unicorn that's going to solve all, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And I'm like, no, if you're ready to say yes, and you are like standing in that power, you're like, I'm super excited about my talk. I've practiced it. I've got my slides. If they want me to do slides, I got slides. If they don't want me to do slides, I can still do it. Like, you got to prepare yourself to have that opportunity. That doesn't mean that you wouldn't be nervous or a little scared. That's fine. But then that will subside as you do it more. So yes, you're going to probably make some mistakes. That's okay. Gosh, I don't know an entrepreneur who hasn't made a mistake yet. Like, just go for it, baby. Especially when you think of like the people that you can serve. And when we really focus on that, it's like, oh, you're not that big of a deal. Get out of the way so you can help those other people. Like, you're a big deal, but you gotta, like, you know what I'm saying? You're a big deal, but you're not that big of a deal.
Yeah, but you know what? This is such a great point. How many times, Lisa, you're like me, you've been around the block in this business a ton of times. How many times have you seen people out there, those people who call themselves influencer, who are more than willing to tell you what a big deal they are? And then you buy something from them and you find out, yeah, they really weren't a big deal. So I think that's a big part of it too. Don't discount, if you're looking for a speaker,
Yeah.
don't discount that person who is a smaller business, who probably works harder than those big influencers to serve people
Absolutely.
in a more complete way. So, don't necessarily just say, oh, I need a big name. It might be that you're making a big name by having someone who is smaller and more intentional in there.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's so important to really just position yourself personally to be ready, and using other resources like your company, or if they're looking to be speakers, to reach out to me. But it's like when you're single and you want to be in a relationship, but you only have a twin bed, no room in the closet. You need to make room for the opportunities. Like, if you're going to write a book, well, you probably should start writing some ideas down. That's just a great place to start. You should probably start looking like, oh, let me block some time in my calendar. Same with speaking. It's like, how do I position myself so that I'm ready and open for these opportunities?
That's so funny. And if you saw my closet, you'd know I'm single. There's no room for men. They might get this much. Is that 6 inches? No.
Yes, my husband was just complaining about that the other day. It's funny, we've been together for 13 years and he's like, I don't have any room in the closet. And I said, well, you have the same amount of room that you've had the entire time we've been together. So I'm not really sure what the problem is. So maybe you need to go and clean some stuff out.
Instead of maybe you need to and give more space.
I always am cleaning stuff out. In fact, I gave him more room. I thought it was very generous of me. He's got at least, 10% of the closet. That's generous.
That is so funny. When I was married, we actually built a master closet
Oh,
because he had so
love it.
little room, and it turned out it was like 100 square feet. I mean, it was a big closet. And then when I pulled all of my stuff out of all the closets in the house,
It filled it out.
still wasn't big enough.
Whoops. Yeah, I'm pretty good at cleaning out, but then he's been buying more things. This isn't, I know the podcast is not about our men.
That's okay. It's about
closet, but
it's about everything.
Oh.
Okay, so I've managed to get myself booked. What are my next steps that are super important in this process?
One of the things that I often say is leverage the crap out of every presentation, because a lot of times there's different things available to you that you may not realize, you may not have asked for, you may not be prepared for, and you don't want to be like cramming the night before, like trying to order something on Amazon hoping it comes in. So each time you present, I like to go through my clients of almost like okay, do they have this? Are you allowed to do that? Have you asked about that? Do you have a table? Like, is it in person? Is it virtual? Two different strategies. Okay, if it's in person, we want to think, are you traveling? What are you allowed to bring? what is going to be. You don't want to get all the way there and then go, oh, I should have brought stuff for a table, or oh, I should have brought my books, or oh, I should have brought this. You can't get it. You're already there. It's too late. So a lot of it's preparing in advance. If it's virtual, I mean, the simplest mistake that I see happen, and this is free, and my gosh, I don't know why people don't think of it. They just don't think of it. Got to have your link ready to go. Like whatever that call to action is, you need to have the link at your fingertips. You also want to have, and I was going to say this earlier. One of the things I'll say, and this goes for your book too. I want people to be able to pass the grocery store test, meaning like, imagine you're standing in line, you're at the grocery store. If you're, someone who doesn't have your groceries delivered to you, that's very popular now, but you get to chatting with the person and they say, oh, you're an author, or oh, you're a speaker. What do you speak about? What's your book called? I want you to be able to say the title of your talk or your book right then and there. You don't want to have to be like, oh, let me, I don't know. Hold on a second. Like, no, boom, done. You got to say it. So I like to be able to pass the grocery store test.
Yeah, and that's a good point. We always tell our authors, we have them go by the title of their book, .com, and then forward it to where the book's at. So this is where, if you're virtual, this is where you can bypass those distributors and list build and do all that, is having the page on your website where people can buy the book from you. Because now you're getting their email address, you're getting their contact information, you're mailing it out. You can put a nice little note in, but whatever. So getspeakinggigsnow.com. Actually, that's Lisa's website, but she could do a spin off that, getspeakinggigs.com, the book, or getspeakinggigsthebook.com, something like that, where you could send people right away. But that right there is the great strategy for bypassing those distributor fees. Mail it out yourself, build a relationship from it. So make sure that you have a really strong call to action. Do you ever do that? Or do you have, sometimes people do a one-time only offer with it too. So, get this downloadable.
I have my book is in Audible form or audio book form. So they can get a free chapter for that. And I do everything through my website, and it goes through, and we're getting in the weeds here, but I still use Amazon link for my book because I actually just don't want to do all the shipping and stuff.
Well, that's good.
I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm like, okay, maybe I should take a look at that. So I'm learning.
I think right now, like even Amazon has a little bit less. Amazon's still 55%, but if you really want to boost that revenue, that's what just happened there.
So
my computer started talking.
Chiming into our computer.
I know. Here, I have tips for you. My computer's saying. But that's really a way to establish a relationship too, because I think as we get more and more into, the recession that we're going into, you're going to have a lot of competition, and you're going to have to take it from, yes, I'm just a face out there, to, hey, Lisa, how you doing today? Is there something I can help you with? Building those conversations a little bit more.
Great point. I love that.
Oh, well, thank you. So I'm on stage, or most events are online now. What are the things that people have to do in those situations? So what I'm thinking off the top of my head is, you're not just the speaker, you have to be a promoter as well.
Yeah, I think it depends on the situation. There's ways that I think of when I'm speaking for an event, or like say on a show, I want to be linked arms with that person, the host or the organization, so that I can help to promote the event. And like, for example, I signed myself up for Google alerts. So my name, if my name gets mentioned, I'll get an alert that it showed up on Google. And the other day I was like, oh, Google alert sending me something. I'm mentioned somewhere, and I'm speaking next week for ABWA, which is American Business Women's Association, and it's in another state. And so they had submitted something for their local newspaper press, and it was on there. I'm like, oh, cool. So then I took that and I went ahead and promoted that link on LinkedIn, and Facebook so that I can help in promoting that event. So it's little steps like that, just kind of setting yourself up. Maybe set up a Google alert for yourself, or ask in advance, is this a private event, or would you like me to promote it on my socials, or is there anything that, would be helpful to do? And that also makes you attractive for maybe next year when they're looking at another event. Or oftentimes I will refer other colleagues of mine to that host. How can I help them? Because they're going to have an event anyway. They might as well go with someone they're getting referred to personally versus like grabbing out of a random, Google search. So there's ways that you can create partnerships with the people that are hosting the events.
Right. But here's the key to it too, is if you commit to it, do it. How many times have you been a part of an event where, you can see half the people aren't promoting the event at all. And it's a little disconcerting. So if you're going to be a really good partner in this event promotion, you need a good email list, correct? So you've got to distribute to your email list. You need a good social media presence. And would you say those two things are the key to you getting more bookings too?
I don't know. I think it's just part of the whole process. It's like putting dinner on the table. Like it's like it all needs to get done. It sort of isn't done exactly at the same time, but it's sort of coordinated to get out on the table at the same time. It's a little tough to say. I think it's a important to consider those components. A lot of like I had a client the other day, she does not like getting emails. She does not like sending emails. And she asked me point blank, she said, if you tell me that I need to have an email list, I'll do it. And I said, you need to have an email list because, but that doesn't mean you need to be an annoying emailer. It doesn't mean that you have to email all the time. But not collecting that information is literally like just leaving all those dollars on the table. Like just you're walking away from all that money that you could. It's like, while you can collect it, collect it. What you do with it, that's another strategy, and we can address that another day. But you don't want to just leave them there. Now, when you bring in social media to it, this is the analogy I gave her. Emails is owning, social media is renting.
Yes.
So you need both. It's like diversifying your portfolio. Who knew we were financial experts? But you want to have the social media presence, and you also want to, if you can, garner those emails so that you start to rent those, or so you start to own that rentable property.
Right. And here's why she's saying that is, if you look around in today's world, there are a lot of people that are getting canceled. A lot of people, like, you could lose your entire audience that you've spent years building. Yeah. And even an algorithm change. I remember one of my partners, probably 6 or 7 years ago, when Zuckerberg decided that communities were the way to go. They lost their page access. They had thousands of people on that business page that all of a sudden the business page was there, but the contacts were blank. So she was literally starting from scratch because she had never transitioned to email. And they're not going to take your email list away. Like, those contacts are yours.
That's where it's the owning versus renting. Like, if you're renting and the landlord can just say, well, we're selling the property, or we decided to kick you out because our sister's moving in, whatever, I don't know. So yeah, you may not get any explanation. You may not be able to recover from it. And not all social media platforms make it easy for you to get the email. So you got to like kind of work with different strategies, but it's just like anything. You got to think, okay, how can I leverage this opportunity? And I don't mean it in a way that, oh, you have to work harder and do more and all that stuff. But if you have a moment to step back and think, well, what are my top platforms, or what is my top platform? And then go, okay, am I leveraging that one the most? Is there a couple of tweaks I can create in automation to make that? And I'm not a social media expert or anything like that, but you end up learning a lot being an entrepreneur, as you know, and business owner. There's a lot of things that you can do.
Yeah, you do. But if you're going to use social media to get your gigs, you need to make sure you're on the right social media. So if you're someone like Leisa, you're probably not over trying to get business on Facebook. Your core audience is on LinkedIn. Is that?
For me, it's both. Facebook and LinkedIn are my top ones because I've been on Facebook for so long and I've used it for the groups. I like the groups on Facebook more than I like the groups on LinkedIn. I just find the LinkedIn groups to be, I like LinkedIn. I like LinkedIn, everybody. But
the groups are obnoxious.
The groups are clunky and weird. And it's like, what is the deal, guys? Can we just figure this out? So Facebook to me has easier group function and I love that. And then, so I've had those communities for so long. It's like, okay, that works great. But I started beefing up LinkedIn a few years back because I was getting leads from LinkedIn without lifting a finger. And I'm like, what if I actually lifted a finger? Then that would probably be really helpful. So I do it that way. I think it depends on your age as well and your comfort. They're all good. It just depends on what you're trying to accomplish and what you enjoy doing and so forth.
Yeah, but there needs to be an evaluation there. We had a client several years ago who she wanted to teach solopreneurs how to get out of their business. And it was very interesting because everything was on Facebook. And it was like, wait a minute, if you're a solopreneur trying to grow a company, you're more likely to get something over on LinkedIn. And the campaign failed because Facebook was not where her people were at. So you do really have to look at that pretty deeply.
Absolutely.
So Leisa, if we wanted to find out more about what you do and work with you, where do we find you at?
You can go to getspeakinggigsnow.com. That's gigs with an S because you want more than one, of course. So getspeakinggigsnow.com. You can get 5 top tips to get more speaking gigs. It's also available on that site. And yeah, there's lots of goodies in there. You can poke around and find the book and the audiobook, whatever, however you want. If you can't get a hold of me, my goodness, you're not trying very hard because it's available.
Because she is everywhere. What is the name of that? Is that an ebook, the 5 tips? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
The 5 top tips to get more speaking gigs. It's a PDF that you'll get, and then we give you some bonus tips, like expanding each of those tips a little bit more too. So lots of opportunity there. And then I have a community, the International Speaker Network. That's for anyone of any speaking ilk, as long as you're relationship-based person who's heart-centered and is nice to people and you're thinking about being a speaker or you already are a speaker. It's a great community for people to join, and that's at ispeakernetwork.com.
iSpeaker Network. And is that a group that's over on Facebook, or how does that work?
It's a group on Facebook, but we have a membership, and you could just check it out on ispeakernetwork.com. Look at there's a bunch of bonuses when people join, and we have monthly calls on Zoom, and it's an opportunity for people to really dive into making it easy to get booked. It's so easy because what you do is you make friends with other speakers and you just have that virtual handshake between, your Zoom handshake, and get to know other people. All of a sudden, magically, you get referred places without having to cold call, without having to Google search and fill out applications that take forever, that lead nowhere. I mean, I've heard all the horror stories. I've lived them.
Yeah, you guys, so go over and check that out, especially if you're struggling. It's the beginning of 2024. So step up and commit that this is going to be the year that you go out and build those relationships to get yourself booked, because that's probably, I would say speaking is probably the easiest way to sell books and meet people that could become potential clients too.
Absolutely.
Leisa, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you. Bye.